Tired of fake news? Lovely camp? Watch a lot of secular talk? Check out justinform.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome. JustInform has a wide range of independent journalists who focus on hard-hitting facts and groundbreaking reports. Watch content from The Jimmy Dore Show, Secular Talk, The Tim Black Show, Nico House, and Convo Couch. Just sign up using your real name and your proper email address and await our screening process. We're fighting hard to keep bots and trolls out for a unique social media experience. If you add your other social media accounts, it will help speed up our screening process to ensure you're approved quickly. Let your voice be heard and your freedom ring.
Join us at justinform.com, where all voices are welcome.
The Democratic Party made history when they nominated their first female nomination, Hillary Clinton. However, they made a Trump presidency inevitable when they rigged it against Bernie Sanders.
Do you think, though, that what we're learning from Donna Brazil's book suggests that the campaign, that what the Democratic National Committee did, meant this election was rigged? Yeah, I think it was.
In 2016, ballots were altered in California.
We observed them whiting out the ballots.
In Broward County, Florida, ballots were destroyed.
She violated federal law and state law by destroying the ballots prematurely. She concealed the fact that she had destroyed the ballots for a full 2 months. If this doesn't amount to malfeasance and nonfeasance, what does?
The Democratic Party does not want progressives running on their platform. Voter suppression that happened in 2016 happened in 2018 as well. Our elections will always be rigged unless we stand against our oppressors.
The process is rigged. This whole election is being rigged.
Together we can unrig the system. Until then, it's rigged.
The first of 3 public records requests was over a year ago. We were stonewalled for 6 months, finally filed a suit to enforce our rights, and while the lawsuit was pending, they destroyed the ballot.
Many in Broward County don't believe the results of the 2018 race, just like they didn't believe the results of the 2016 race. He was cheated in Broward County in 2016 when Brenda Snipes illegally destroyed ballots. And then in 2018, we've seen the shenanigans.
You voted for Tim Canova last year, well, 2 years ago, correct?
Yes, I did. And on the ballot this year, he or Debbie Wasserman Schultz are not on my ballot.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz is here. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is working the polling area with Secret Service.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Murphy.
Tell me what the atmosphere was like the day before Election Day.
Well, I can tell you the day before and the days that I was on the ground leading up to the elections. I was there almost a week before. It was very positive. I mean, we had just got word of the poll that it was a kind of an internal poll, but somehow it got leaked. It got released by the Republicans. And it showed that Tim was in a dead heat with her. So, this is Republican polling. They don't really have any skin in the game. They obviously, if anything, from what we're finding out after the fact, they were more in her corner, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, than in Tim's, largely because they had a lot of the same donors. So the atmosphere on the ground, the energy was high. I've done a lot of, in the past, I've done a lot of campaign work, political work, and I said a number of times that from literally being on the ground and talking to voters as they're going into the polling stations, the favorables were high. It was kind of an anybody but her type of energy that you were getting, and then when they'd hear about him, they were all in. They're like, "Oh, cool, thanks." They were taking the information, they were reading it going in, and I had a number of them. So many tell me, "He's got my vote. We need to get her out." So that's what it was before the elections.
I never thought I was going to run for a public office, and I got swept up in the moment, you could say, in 2015. First, it was partly the issues, and then it became politics. And the animating issue was the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. And as somebody who teaches in this area and writes about international trade, I tried to contact my local congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and got nowhere. Ended up in a parking lot outside of her Pembroke Pines office with a group called the Citizens Trade Campaign protesting, and that's where I met Deborah Dion, who's been with the campaign from day one. Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz was the only Democrat in Florida's House delegation to vote to fast-track the TPP. And we started looking to see if we could find someone who would challenge her, and it was hard. She was the head of the Democratic National Committee, of course, so we had to find somebody who was crazy enough to take on that challenge, and it took a while for that to be made. The Bernie Sanders campaign was very inspiring, and Sanders was calling on folks to step up and to do things out of their comfort zone, whether it was knocking on doors or making phone calls or running for office. That's what got me into the race the first time, and it was a real epic race, David versus Goliath, you could say. Our campaign went viral. We raised a lot of money in small donations online. Of course, a lot of the reason was because we were going against somebody who had made herself very unpopular nationally because of the way she had conducted herself in running the Democratic National Committee. Now, we bear down not just on her record as DNC chair, but what she had been doing as a congresswoman. It's not a pretty record, to tell you the truth. We saw that she's been taking millions of dollars from the largest corporations and Wall Street banks, and she's been pushing their interests on issue after issue. And this was a bit of a revelation for a lot of folks because, you know, we're accustomed to seeing her on TV as the chair of the Democratic National Committee attacking Republicans, and folks weren't really scrutinizing her own record, her own fundraising record, and seeing how incredibly corporate she was. So she's been swimming in this corporate money for years, and we're committed to not taking any corporate money and keeping it real, keeping it as a grassroots campaign.
Tim Canova's race became the most important race in the progressive movement. His race would determine the justice between Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Bernie Sanders supporters who were cheated out of the race in 2016.
There's no question to my mind, and I think no question to any objective observer's mind, that the DNC was supporting Hillary Clinton, was in opposition to our campaign. I made it clear that I thought Debbie Wasserman Schultz should resign, should step down, not only because of the prejudice I think they showed during the campaign, but also because I think we need a new leadership of the Democratic Party, which is going to open up that party to working people, to young people.
Suzanne Murphy.
And I'm Nico House.
Going to give you a quick report from the field. We're seeing independents, we're seeing Republicans, and we're seeing even Democrats strong support for Tim Canova.
The energy for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, his competitor, has not really been lively out here.
We're out here knocking on doors, talking to voters, trying to let folks know that we're on the ballot and what our message is. The message to the voters is that I want to represent all of the people of this district, regardless of party. There's a lot of parts of this district who feel very unrepresented, and a lot of parts of this district, people are suffering, lack of jobs and health care, housing costs are rising. We want to be there to represent that.
Feedback has been good. The contact we've had has been very positive. It's interesting, regardless of party affiliation, there's a very, very strong sentiment. People are saying it's time for these incumbents. It's apparently not even just Debbie Wasserman Schultz. There's a strong anti-incumbency sentiment here. Obviously, that would bode well for Tim Canova.
Hi, everybody. It's Tim. I just voted. It's a very exciting day today. We have volunteers stepping up all over the district. It's really a great mobilization. And our race is looking very good. It's turned into a two-way horse race. The Republican really has no chance of winning, and we have a lot of Republicans now breaking our way, as well as Democrats. And I want to represent everyone in this district, so I'm asking for the votes of Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, Greens. We're going to do this.
Hello, my name is Michelangelo Hamilton. I'm an election integrity activist, student activist. I'm a freshman here at Florida Atlantic University, and I'm a member of student government here in Boca Raton. I'm back here. I'm with Al. We just finished off the first page, and I'm going to try to get you guys filled in on what's going on. I
just got here maybe 30 minutes ago. I'm going to turn the camera on.
Every other county, every other county. If you wish to double your taxes for the supervisor of elections, she makes money.
They're fucking horse shit.
All right, so tell me what you've seen in Broward County on Election Day and after Election Day.
Absolutely. So what I saw in Broward County on Election Day, I saw a video by Joanne Knox, a great supporter of Tim Canova, and I believe Nico, who's a part of your network, Mikasa Sukasa Network, she gave the video to him to overview and see if there was any irregularities, and there was.
So I'm not real sure what's going on here, but they're like driving up with the cars. Let me flip this. And then putting everything in the truck. Yep, let me move my hand. Hang on, guys. And then, I know it's dark and it's hard to see. And then my two ladies just walked up there with the provisional ballots, walking back into the precinct, and a bag of, like, you know, the paper ballots. And I said to them, I go, what, you just can carry those around? And they said, no, the truck left them. But the truck's right here, so I'm not real sure what the hell's going on here. I don't think it's right.
This is the same supervisor of elections that destroyed the ballots in the Tim Canova primary in 2016, and now she has run this county into the ground. The recount found that 2,000 ballots are missing. Like, they're missing 2,000 less ballots. So the excuse for the supervisor of elections, she's saying that, oh, maybe a worker put the ballots somewhere and they were not trained enough. But it's obviously that she did not know what results to put because she didn't know how many people were going to show out. These were unprecedented numbers of voter turnout, and it was really hard to, rig the vote. But they're using fraction magic, fractionalized, sectioning off a certain amount of votes for one candidate towards another in that sense. And it's very concerning, especially down here in Broward County. She's very corrupt. She has been seen campaigning with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And the more votes that get counted, the less votes are in the race for Tim Canova. Like, the less votes he gets. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz a little bit too, but the percentage goes up. And we also see now by Lulu Streisand, if I pronounced her name right, that a lot of the votes for Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not really associated with like how many of that was mail-in ballot, how many was that provisional ballot, when was it cast on election day. Like, that would usually be information that would be on these results, and we don't see that. And that's about 97,000 votes for Debbie Wasserman Schultz does not have this information, so it looks like it's rigged. She is corrupt. She has been seen with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Broward is a home county of mine. I'm in Palm Beach County right now, but I'm still technically registered in Broward. But Broward, is a very corrupt county, has been like that for a long time, and I think the house of cards are starting to fall.
So do you think that Debbie Wasserman Schultz won fairly?
Absolutely not, unfortunately. Because this is a democracy, and to rig a vote for one candidate over another is undemocratic. It's just not right. It's not what this country was founded on. If we wanted this, we could be in some dictatorship, and that's what it pretty much feel like in Broward County. We have a lot of candidates. There was another candidate who I know. She ran for commission, she lost, and the same thing happened with her. They didn't have any information on how many of that was provisional ballot, mail-in, early vote. So this is not just happening to Tim Canova. This is happening to some other candidates down here in Broward as well. So she definitely did not win fairly. And even in the primary, she should have been removed from office. She should have been impeached, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because she did not win that election legitimately. And then when she went into the general in 2016, she got reelected. That should have not been the case. And now it's starting to reappeared to Rick Scott. He took action on this, but we need to pressure the governor now to do his job, fulfill his duty in the Constitution. It's not an option. It says if there is corruption, if there is negligence by a public official, the governor shall remove that person from office.
I've traveled around with a backpack overseas in Europe. I studied in Stockholm, Sweden for a year. I know what it's like in a lot of these countries in Europe where everyone is covered. The United States is a wealthy enough country where we shouldn't have any person who has to go without health coverage. And, Obamacare, it moved the ball forward, you could say. I don't want to be hypercritical of it, but it did leave 29 million Americans out in the cold without any health care coverage, and we still see that the cost of health insurance keeps going up for those of us who are covered. Higher premiums and co-pays and deductibles. So we need a Medicare for all. Wasserman Schultz takes money from the big pharmaceutical companies, the big private insurance companies, and she's one of the holdouts in the House of Representatives among Democrats. She refuses to co-sponsor H.R. 676, which is the Medicare for All Act. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was taking money from the Correction Corporations of America. They now changed their name to CoreCivic. And she was pushing for a private immigration detention center in this district in Southwest Ranches. That was just 2 years ago when I debated her. She was still trying to defend that position and say that there was some kind of a difference between a prison and an immigration detention center. This year, she's on her high horse saying it's demonic to be for private prisons. So she's very flexible with, her politics, I guess, and a lot of it is putting her finger up to the wind and going wherever the wind is blowing. Recent events, we all see playing out this environmental disaster from Lake Okeechobee. I spoke out about this 2 years ago. In fact, I published a Medium piece called Debbie Has a Sweet Tooth. Well, Debbie does have a sweet tooth. She's taken more money from Big Sugar than almost any other politician. Last quarter century, these big sugar companies have donated over $50 million to Democrats and Republicans alike. Look what they're doing to our water here in this beautiful state. State voters in 2014, 76% of us voted for this solution, for the state to impose a small real estate transactions tax, build up $1 billion, and buy up the sugar farms. Well, these sugar families are so powerful, they don't want to give up their subsidies. They're getting $120 million a year in federal subsidies. My opponent has been voting for these subsidies year after year. She talks like she cares about the environment. There's too many dead and dying manatees. I hear there's more than 400 sea turtles that have now died from the latest environmental disaster.
My final interview is Kelly Lane. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kelly Lane, and I'm an independent journalist, and I also have been working with CFAR and CWAC, which are candidate contracts. Contract for American Renewal, which is about 80% Bernie's platform, and Candidates with a Contract, which is an anti-corruption contract. And I watched the 2016 primary very closely, and it became very clear that the biggest issue was election integrity. After what happened in the Democratic primary, and we saw, all across the country, that it was rigged in many ways. And so I became involved interviewing candidates and continued to follow election integrity efforts, which led me to Broward County.
So Saturday is out for a state recount, because you said November 13th to the 20th, so that would be Tuesday.
And that should be the 12th. I should have said the 12th.
12th. November 12th.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question about people that were trying to go to different precincts and come in and just observe. And there's a Florida statute, I don't have the number in front of me right now, that says that they're allowed to do that people are allowed to come in and observe, take pictures, but I don't
think they have take pictures in there. You can't do photography.
Not with voters in there, but once if they come in at the end, and there were several representatives from Tim Canova's campaign that came to several precincts, and they were told they weren't allowed in there. They were told that they actually had the cops called on one.
I don't have an answer for you now because I don't have that information at all.
Okay.
So when we get that information, usually the staff will present an incident report.
Okay.
We'll have more information, but I don't have the information at all.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tim Canova is a candidate who has signed both candidates with the contract and CFAR, and has been really the most outspoken about election integrity. Obviously, after what happened in 2016 with his primary against Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the ballot destruction, that was really the biggest known case that was proven that something had happened.
What did you experience leading up to the election day in Broward?
Well, I was there as a volunteer with Audit USA and John Brakey, and we went to the main headquarters, which was Lauderhill, where Brenda Snipes' office is, and delivered this letter, basically saying that Mr. Brakey was there to observe various things. There are a couple of different statutes that allow observation, and that's what we were there for. So I was just there as kind of a volunteer to assist.
Tell me about your run-in with Brenda Snipes.
Well, it was really interesting because this was before the media circus and everyone descended upon you couldn't get in the front door. And she was just kind of roaming the halls, and people were coming up to her and asking her questions. So I decided that I wanted to live stream and ask her why people were not allowed to observe. So there is a Title 9, Electors and Elections, Chapter 104, Election Code Violations and Penalties, Section 29. Inspectors refusing to allow watchers while ballots are counted. Now that's one of the videos that's now gone viral that showed how people were just trying to observe, and they were like rolling things in front of to block the view. So she didn't have an answer. Like, she didn't seem to have an answer for anything. She was kind of, like I said, she was available to people and she was answering questions, or talking to people, but not really answering, giving a lot of non-answers. The second time I went up to her, and, I was kind of surprised that she talked to me a second time after that. This was to ask her specifically about what's called a records request, a public records request. Now, this is something that we have been suggesting to candidates that they can do before or after the election. They can say, put in a public records request so that they can find the ballot images, if they saved those, and any information about the election. Well, as of today, December 4th, no one has received a public records request, the results back from Broward County. So I actually spoke to someone today that is in charge of this, and she said that it wasn't put in for I think 10 days after the election, and she would try to hurry it up. But that's the most that I know of that anyone's been able to get out of them. So now I'm kind of wondering how I can recommend to candidates that this is a great way to follow up on things, because obviously they can just stall and we still have no idea. I was there because Tim was one of our candidates that signed our contracts, and that was my whole point of being there, was to try to assist his campaign in any way we could. And so that was a little bit frustrating.
Brenda Snipes was finally removed from Broward County as their supervisor after the 2018 elections. After all was said and done, she was removed by the governor, Rick Scott, who almost lost his election because of her.